Hi everybody, it's Terry. I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas. Very Merry Christmas. Let's make a glue gun caddy. This thing turned out really nice. Very happy with it. I needed one very badly. My old one fell apart. It wasn't anything like this. I just used a old plastic box with tumbling tower blocks to keep the gun from melting the plastic. So anyways, I used mostly Dollar Tree wood planks, the rectangle and the squares. I did use two paint stir sticks from Walmart and wood glue, hot glue, my ruler and a pencil. I'm going to take two of the rectangular planks, which out of the package measure 7 1/8 inches by 2 7/8 inches, and I'm going to glue those two together, and that's going to be what I make the glue gun holder out of. Is those two pieces that I glued together there. So here's a complete list of all of the measurements. I redid this 3 times because I kept messing stuff up, but I'm pretty sure I got it right for this, and I wanted it to look neat so you could actually read it. So anyway, the two rectangles, which on the first line is what we are gluing, what we just glued together. And I did leave that sat overnight. Anything that I glued sat for more than 12 hours before I tried to mess with it. So in here I wanted to make sure you had enough time to either write stuff down or at least be able to reference it, you know, if you decide to make this. So I did not do a trial run. Oh, I thought I'd already glued this, sorry. I did not do a trial run on this. I just decided what I wanted and started putting it together. So make sure that you get plenty of glue. You don't want it gushing everywhere, but you know, you want to make sure that you have enough that it is going to hold. And then, like I said, this sat. It ended up setting for quite a bit. It probably sat for more than 24 hours. Because I did that first, and you know, it sat for the whole time. So anyways, we're taking a square Dollar Tree plank and we're putting that up against the rectangle, and that'll be how high we want the back side of that rectangle to be. And this diagonal cut is our sides, so we want 2 of them. And then what I did was I put a glue stick up at the bottom, or up against the other side of it. Just made sure that my glue stick was going to have enough room that a little bit of it would stick over the top. So the measurement that I come up with was 4 1/2 inches, and then the bottom, the smallest part of the diagonal, was 3 1/4 inches. So I just went by the top of the Dollar Tree square, and then by a little bit more than how big the glue stick was. Basically is where I got my measurements from. So it ends up being, like I said, trying to read my own instructions here, but I'm under pressure, so it seems like I can't find what I'm looking for. Okay, so anyways, you know, not a lot of hot glue. I wanted to use mostly wood glue. I really should have used more wood glue and less hot glue than what I actually used. Just one little dot of hot glue in the center would have been fine, and the rest wood glue, because there was a lot of glue to scrape off afterwards, a lot of the hot glue. But this did work fine, so I can't, you know, I'm not gonna sit here and knock it. It did work out fine. You could, after the whole thing was done, you could see through the wood glue. so it could have used a little extra wood glue. Okay, so another Dollar Tree square, and I just put it in where it's going to go and marked the sides so that I know where to cut it, how short to cut it. And now I'm going to reinforce the other piece with more wood glue, because we really do want to make sure that, you know, it stays. We don't want it to fall apart on us. This turned out really sturdy, so whatever I did really did work. This is my first project that I really didn't make a big mistake. I measure my success by how many mistakes I make. This one it actually turned out well, you know, and I didn't do a trial run on it. There, I'm just making sure that it doesn't curl in. You know, sometimes when you glue stuff, it'll curl in before you get your other piece on there. So I'm speaking into a new microphone my son got me for Christmas. Thank you, Jacob. I really do appreciate it. I really needed it. Now it saves me the question of which do I replace first, the microphone, geesh, or the camera. And so now I can work on getting a new camera. And you know, my camera that I got, I think I paid $30 for it, and it's worked, you know, served me well thus far. But it's a plug and play, so I can't move around with it. And I did get a new saw. I got a new table saw for Christmas, so I want to be able to go out into a woodworking room. Well, I say a because it hasn't been officially built yet, but I want to be able to go out into the woodworking room and take my camera with me, and I just can't do that now. So alright, so anyways, putting our wood plank on, you know, one side at a time so that our hot glue doesn't dry too quick. So make sure that both sides don't touch at the same time, and you know, that way it gives you more time to get it into the perfect place. Okay, so this not only looks good, it turns out to be very sturdy in the end. So I do put extra glue on where I can, you know, down in the corners, and I let that dry just like that right there, and it turns out pretty sturdy. So it's the tip of a skewer is what that is, one of the thicker skewers, and I can't remember where I got those skewers from. The Dollar Tree skewers are pretty thin. This is a little bit thicker than that. So I just take that, get it on the tip, and then put it down into the corners. And it works very well. And like I said, that box turned out very sturdy. So the back piece of the box, we'll call this our glue box. This is our glue box. The back piece of our glue box is just a normal size. It's 4.5 by 4.5 inch. It's just a normal size square right out of the package. Okay, so our paint stir sticks are going to be 8.5 inches, and you need to mark them. So I mark one, and then I tape them together and take them out to the miter saw. But I need to make 2 cuts on that. I did not mark it here. I forgot about making the 2 cuts. So out at the miter saw, I did use the pieces I just cut to measure for a second cut at 8.5 inches. So you need 3 pieces at 8.5 inches, basically is what I'm trying to say, but I took the long way. But anyway, so you have the rectangle, you have the 2 rectangles glued together to make the gun holder. You have the 2 rectangle pieces for the sides that we cut in a diagonal. Then you have the square, which becomes the back, and the 2 diagonals become the side. And then we used another square that we cut down for the front. And now you have these are going to be the base for the glue gun, and these are at 8.5 inches. So I wished I had stained these before I started, but once you stain them, you have to wait until they completely dry. You can't glue, you obviously can't glue stuff together. When the stuff is damp or whatever, you have to let them set. Now, my basement is very cold. I come down here and turn on a space heater, but it doesn't get warm down here for quite a while. So I basically work in a cold area. Anyways, I'm going to use this Dollar Tree rectangle piece to hold the paint stir sticks together. Instead of gluing, the sticks, instead of gluing the paint sticks together, I'm just going to put this one piece over it, make sure I get enough on, try to center it as best as possible. Make sure that your glue or your paint stick, keeps wanting to say glue stick. Make sure that your paint sticks are, together very well. And then I added that on there on top for weight. I left it set overnight. It's very strong, by the way. That box turned out very strong. Okay, so this barely fits on the width of the rectangle. It barely fits on there. So I sat it at the very end of the rectangle and then made my mark, and then I double checked it to make sure. But when I glue it, you'll see I can only put glue on the two what become the side pieces, the part that I'm cutting right there and the other side, because the two long sides don't really touch the bottom of the box, or there's not enough there to put glue on, so it barely fits on there. I used my knife as much as I could to make this as simple as possible. I did use the miter saw instead of using that miter shears, the miter shears that I have, but I did use the knife, as much as I could. I do enjoy using my saw. I really do. I get all giddy. Yay, I'm going to go use my saw. Does that sound silly? I get really excited about it. I am going to be working with wood more. I'm very excited about my new table saw. Very excited about it. Once I get it set up, I will be a building fool, a woodworking fool. Okay, so I set this on top of our base. I set it on top of there just so I would be able to move it without tearing it apart. So I thought, you know what, let me set this on top of here. That way when it's still wet, I can just move it. I can just pick it up by the rest of the base and just, set it to the side. So, and then one little dab of hot glue. I ended up, since I have the big glue gun and I'm just not used to that, I ended up with too much glue again. I seem to be a too much gluer at this point in my life. But it if you hurry up, you can wipe it off pretty easy. So I was very impressed at how straight I got this. And like I told you, I can only put glue on the outside edges because it just barely fit on that rectangle piece. But when this box dries, it is super sturdy. So the wood glue did really well. Okay, so this is for our glue gun holder or holster. I guess it'd just be a holder. So we were in the Dollar Tree and my husband said, "Hey, look at that arrow." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's an arrow." He said, "Isn't that the shape you want for your glue gun holder?" And I was like, "Well, you smart stinker, you." So yeah, it's actually perfect. This is what we want. So if I hadn't already glued the two planks together, I would say, just, I would have just, not I would say, oh my goodness, Terry. Um, I would just use 2 of the arrows and cut them down to size. Just glue them together, and they would make the perfect glue gun holder. So anyways, what I'm doing is I'm softening up the lines, making it a little more round. It's the perfect template, though, the arrow. But yeah, you could take 2 of those arrows and glue them together, you know, maybe around the edges a little bit, cut it down, you know, an inch or so below the arrow part, and you'd have a perfect glue gun holder. So I had already done it, and like I said, I get really excited about the saws, so I'm going to take it to the scroll saw and I'm going to cut that out. And I ended up, you know, it ended up a little uneven, but I don't care because I had fun using the scroll saw. So here it is, and I'm showing you that that side ended up more long and pointy, but it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. I always get a little, I don't know what you call, I do know a word for it, but I don't want to say that word. I get a little picky. I'm very harsh on myself. So, you know, not one person's going to notice that my glue gun holder has a longer tip on one side. Looking at it from this point of view, I'm like, you silly. Nobody's going to notice that. Okay, so this wood splintered bad. I mean, like, really bad. A whole piece is going to rip off here in a minute. So I'm trying to get, you know, how tall I want it to be. So I end up cutting it at 4 3/8 inch tall. So I can't tell you how much I took off of the end, but the total length, and this is for a big glue gun, one of the bigger Surebonder glue guns. It ended up being 4 3/8 inches tall. So here I'm just testing it out. You know, is this too big? Is this right? I move it up, move it down a little bit, and it turns out that the spot where I marked it, it turns out being the perfect size. So it slants my gun just a little bit, not much, but I don't think it needs to be slanted any more than that. So anyways, just make sure that you cut both sides even, so it doesn't have a, you know, a slant to it. So yeah, here we go. The wood splintered very bad. That was mild compared to the next one. As I'm sanding, trying to get rid of the splinters, it just pulls a whole great big piece off. It just tears it like all the way down. But it was $1 for 5 of those planks, so I guess I can't complain too much. So there's one. And this, I thought about doing this in the antique wax, just the arrow part, and doing the rest of it in white, but I didn't do it that way. I went ahead and just painted the whole thing white. Here I'm trying to keep it from splintering so bad, but it was really bad. And that is 100 grit. I did show you that, I'm sure. I get to talk and I'm looking at my paper and then I don't realize what I'm doing on the screen. So anyways, even though I'm going to paint this, I still end up going with the wood grain. No matter what I sand, I always go with the wood grain. There we go. Split all the way down. But all's not lost. Still, it's going to serve its perfect purpose. So I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. I'm always happy when it's over. You know, all the wrapping and the cooking and the shopping and, you know, everything. And I have many empty chairs at my table, two of which are my children, and it makes it very hard to enjoy, you know, anything about it. I dread the holidays. Plus, the sunshine disappears this time of year, and my depression gets really bad, so it's just like compounded. So I'm always glad when it's over. I wished I could get back into the Christmas spirit again. I go back in time to when all my kids were here. My dad was here. My sister. And my sister was like the ringleader. She's the one that got everybody together and, you know, kind of held us all together like glue. Then my dad was always my rock. You know, I could go and talk to him about anything, and he passed away a few years before my second youngest son passed away. And I'm glad that he wasn't here to see him, you know, die. But I also didn't have him to, you know, hang my head on. So it's kind of, you know. Anyway, I'm trying to get all these rough edges down. Now here's a big mistake that I made. I didn't use putty. I should have used putty or wood filler to, you know, smooth this all down before I painted it, but I didn't do that. So here I'm going to glue my base on. Or no, I'm going to glue my glue gun holder on. I think since it's so thick, you know, the two pieces together, since it's so thick at the bottom, it glued on super well. Very sturdy. Just with glue. I was going to take a tumbling tower block and secure it, you know, like the front and the back of it to secure it, but it didn't feel like it needed it. So, you know, maybe sometime down the road I will, you know, end up needing to support it, but I didn't feel like it needed it at this point. So I'm going to mark where I want it, you know, towards the center. Make sure that it's centered. I should have said. Make sure that it's centered. And then that way I know exactly when I get my two different glues on there, I know exactly where to place it. So, some wood glue. And this is the spot where you see the glue the most. And it's yellow. Like I said, you know, wood glue is yellow. So you can really see the wood glue here after it dries, but I had to make sure I got enough on there. Here I'm just picking off the hot glue, which I've done, you know, throughout the video. I did spend a lot of time picking hot glue globs off. You know, and this, like, after I got the project all together, it sat here for a couple days because when I went to do the video, my video kept freezing up. So I just turned it off and left it here since yesterday, and it had already set for a good 24 hours before that. So it is super sturdy. I'm sitting here right now trying to move that what I call the arrow piece, the glue gun holder, back and forth, and it doesn't budge. It doesn't budge at all. So I'm very proud of this. This turned out so well. So I'm just going to put a line of glue here, get it down in that crack after I picked off most of the hot glue. So I'm very excited to see how my microphone how my voiceover did. I did test the microphone out a little bit, but I'm excited to see how it does on my first, full-length video here. So wiping off the excess glue. At this point, I still think I'm going to stain it until I see the yellow from the glue the next day. So here I was going to put hot glue, and then I thought, no, I don't need to. I'm just going to leave it set anyway. So I'm going to put it on this way, and then I'm like, no, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. So I grab a piece of parchment paper, and that way it won't stick to my table, which, by the way, my table has those clear cutting mats on it. That's why you see me cutting and whatnot on it. It has the clear cutting mats on it, so I'm not just cutting up my table. So here it is. Now I'm going to do the glue reinforcement, and then I'm going to leave this set, and it's going to set for 24 hours. And then we're going to put a little couple of craft sticks on there for reinforcement. This turned out so well. Very proud of it. And it works. I mean, it's totally 100% functional. There's my gartol miter shears. So there's no measurement here. I just cut the ends off and then measured the second stick by the first one. So trying to figure out how I was going to do this. I knew it was going to be hot glue. So I take and I put a line of wood glue, and then I'm going to take the popsicle stick or the craft stick and then put the glue on it, and I'm telling you to keep that glue part up, and then just lay that on there. Of course you won't push it down to secure it. Now this I'm covering pretty much the whole stick, and then that one's on the upside just for reinforcement. And then I'm picking off the glue, the hot glue. So this reinforcement did a heck of a job. So I just was laying awake at night thinking, what can I do to reinforce that? And this worked perfect. So they're not only stuck to themselves, they're stuck to the edge. Okay, so I showed you that paint, but that is not what I used. I ended up using the Rust-Oleum Linen White chalk paint to paint it with. Thank you so much for watching my video. I really do appreciate you. I'd love it if you could give me a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel. YouTube kind of demands that we get 1,000 subscribers, and I'm doing a lot better than I was like 2 weeks ago, but I'm still down, I think, under 50 subscribers. So I would really appreciate it if you could maybe hit the like, subscribe, maybe even share my video if that's not too much to ask, I should say. But I do appreciate you watching. This turned out really well. Turned out really, really well. It's very functional. It's very sturdy. I pick it up from the back side, I pick it up from the front side, and it doesn't move at all. So if you can follow my instructions, I hope you can. What I wrote down on the paper and what we did. So here it is, and I took a piece of parchment paper, wax paper, but it's actually parchment paper. It was a piece I had laying here, and then you put that there, then you don't have any drips on your wood. So there it is, all nice and functional. It turned out very nice. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. And I hope you have a very happy new year.